Today we are going to talk about problem awareness because it is so important. And I feel like just such a topic of conversation I've been having with people lately. And I think it's always important, but it's especially important more recently because I think our industry is just continuing to get noisier and noisier, which is fine. That doesn't have to be a problem, but it does mean we have to think about how we're creating problem awareness for our people. So I'm going to talk about what that is and what that looks like and how you can do that. But basically, like, the thing to create more conversions is creating more problem awareness. And the more and more noise is added to the space, the more you're going to have to work at that. So I just want to talk about what that looks like. Yes, I got food poisoning in college and was determined not to hate mac and cheese and broccoli for the rest of my life. Oh no, mac and cheese. That's a killer one to get food poisoning around. I think mine was oysters, which is a huge bummer because I really like oysters, but not feeling them anymore. Okay, so basically when I say problem awareness, I'll just give you some examples of what I mean here, but like whether you're a coach, business coach, whatever, I'm going to use some of those a little bit more specifically, but this applies across the board. Michelle will probably use you since you're here too. But what happens is someone, has a problem. Like, I want to grow my business more. Or like, I feel, like I want to not feel so bad in my IVF journey. But what they don't know is what solves that problem a lot of the time, right? Because our space is so noisy. If you have the problem of not getting clients in your business, please stop for a minute and think about how many people have a different solution to that. It's like literally mind-blowing if you actually think about like the hundreds of presentable solutions to that problem. Does that make sense? Or even, Michelle, like the IVF journey, like I'm sure there are like a million different philosophies of what to do for it, how to make it better, how you should be handling it, all of these things, right? So like I might know that I have the problem of like not having enough clients, but the bigger problem is that there is a lot of noise in our space. And so there are like 100 different versions of that problem. Like I might think the problem is I'm not getting clients because my content isn't right, or because my messaging isn't right, or because I don't have the best funnel, or because my Facebook ads aren't working, or because I don't have the right copywriter, or because I need a coach, or because right? Like it is literally endless. And so if you're not creating problem awareness around what thing that you help your audience with, they're so overwhelmed that they're probably not going to land on one specific thing. And if they can't land on one specific thing, it doesn't necessarily make sense to pay thousands of dollars to solve that problem when they don't even know if that's actually the problem. Does that make sense? Oh, Michelle, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. So many shoulds: not eating right, not exercising right, not doing the right protocol, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And business is so the same, right? There's like 5 million different things. So if you're not creating problem awareness around what that is, hey, Jennifer, it is going to be so hard for your audience to feel really compelled to buy your solution, right? So like just an example I'll give on this is like, let's say you coach around like content, right? And you're like an expert at helping people with like content plans and organic marketing and that kind of thing. So you make all of your content around that. You're talking about content plans, you're talking about organic marketing, you're talking about like content prompts, things like that. I could really like your content, but unless I shouldn't have used content because now I have to use it in 2 contexts, but unless I might really like your content, but unless I see my content as the number one reason that I'm not getting clients, I just think your content is helpful, right? It doesn't feel like a need, a must, invest now kind of thing. I'm like, oh, I love that prompt. That's what it feels like, right? But if you are talking to like, how would I know that content is the reason I'm not getting clients? How would I know that's the biggest problem I have? Why is that a bigger problem for me than having a great opt-in or funnel? Why is that a bigger problem for me than working on my mindset, right? If you're not answering those questions for your people, your content is just good. It's not converting. It's a nice tip. It's not a need to have, right? And you can see how in this space, that's what happens so much is you can give a lot of value, but if you're not creating a lot of problem awareness around that value, it is going to be so hard for people to convert. Okay. And again, as it gets noisier and noisier, it gets harder and harder because there are 52 problems in their face that they think might be keeping them from getting that client, right? Michelle says, so I think my problem awareness is emotional wellness because that's what I help my clients with so they can actually get through their journey or stay in it long enough to get the results they want, which is a baby. Michelle, totally. So like they know the problem is I'm like, I feel like shit and I'm not getting pregnant, but you have to be like, emotional wellness is the biggest reason. Here's how to know if you're not experiencing emotional wellness. Here's what that looks like. Here's how you can self-identify. Here's why that's a bigger problem than like, you know, whatever these other 52 things are, right? Then I start to really see like Michelle is the person to solve my biggest problem and to get me what I most want, right? If not, I'm like, I love that Michelle's motivating, you know, or whatever. It doesn't feel like a must, a need, a conversion, right? And this is where we get tripped up a lot of times. And this is what I see happen with so many clients when they're coming to me and they feel like I'm putting out value, I'm being consistent with my content. Why is it not converting? And that's why, because they like it. They just don't see it as the number one problem, right? So it's like that content example I gave. I might love your value you're giving around content. I might think you're so smart at marketing. I might love your prompt, but I right now think that like my funnel is my biggest issue. So no matter how valuable your content is, I'm never making that transition, right? And so I think, again, as the space gets noisier and noisier, more and more of our stuff has to focus on problem awareness. We cannot assume anymore that our audience is coming to us totally problem aware and ready to buy. We have to actually craft more and more of a percentage of our content around problem awareness, right? And where that gets weird is sometimes what you'll hear in marketing is like doing that in a shitty way. So it's almost like, oh, tell them, what is it? Tell them the what, not the how, or something like that. Is that how like the bro marketing kind of thing gets said, the what, not the how? I don't subscribe to that. I'm not saying hold back. I'm not saying like, oh, don't give that content marketing prompt or whatever because they're not going to hire you. It's not about hold back. It's about, is your audience even getting why that prompt is so valuable? Like you have to help them see why that's so valuable for you to be able to make that connection, for them to go, oh, yes, this is so good, right? Like that's when you have those moments. It's not based on how good your content is. It's based on how much they realize they need that content, how problem aware they are around why that's their biggest solution. Does that make sense? Like it's such a different animal. And it doesn't mean hold back so they have to pay you. It means make it clear why they should pay you and connect those dots, right? Thanks, bro. Yes, the what and the why, not the how, right? You can still tell people the how, totally not against that yet. Jennifer says totally true, totally not against that. It's just that if you're telling them that before they get the problem awareness piece, it's just not going to land the same. And so what I see a lot of people doing in their marketing is they're meeting their people too far down the line past problem awareness. And then they're putting out a ton of value and super frustrated that it seems like people like it, but it's not like a need to have. It's not a must. It's not a huge conversion. And this is like 100% of the time, usually the biggest reason behind that. I'm not saying, I guess I'm going to backpedal here. Maybe not 100%. There certainly could be other reasons. Let's say 95, but it's like a big freaking portion of it, right? Another example of this would be, people that are marketing more like mindset help. Well, there are a million strategy solutions in our industry. And so that's like mostly what I'm seeing if I'm, in business. That's what I'm seeing a lot. And it's what feels easier. It's what I sometimes wish would solve the problem. And so if you're doing like selling mindset, it's almost like your biggest job is problem awareness. How is most of your content focused on getting them to go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that is how I would identify as having that problem. Oh, that's my biggest issue, right? You have to keep bringing it back to that over and over and over. Where if I'm just over here talking about like what mindset work you should be doing this week, you probably like it and it's good. It's just not at all going to land, right? It's not going to make the sale. But if you can give me like a list of like why this is my biggest problem, or like how I could self-identify that this week, or like what it would look like if I knew mindset was my biggest problem, what it looks like for your clients, what, stories you can tell around that. Like if you can create that problem awareness over and over and over again, that's when your audience gets to that point of like, oh, this is my biggest problem. And so now I'm willing to pay, invest, put time, energy, and effort into solving it. But I'm never paying, investing, and putting time, energy, and effort into something that I don't see as my biggest problem. Like I'm just not, it makes no sense. And like most of us are just never going to do that. Right. Michelle says, I like to think our magic is in expediting the how. I'm a big believer that folks can usually figure it out on their own, but sometimes you don't have the energy or time or money to wait that long. Totally. Or the perspective, right? Like, or the non-biased perspective. That's such a big part of it too. But I totally agree with you. Like, it's not like someone has to have these things, but if I can help you see that this is your number one problem, and then I can help you see how I solve it for you in a faster way than you could have, then of course that's where you're going to invest in what makes sense. By the way, I just realized this, so allow me to explain. This is from my IV last week. I'm fine. It looks way worse than it is, but I just noticed that because one of my clients, I like always point with my hand, said something to that earlier. So anyway, that was an IV, totally fine. But yeah, like it's so important that they see that connection, and you might have to make that connection for them over and over and over again in your content, because think of all the other content that they're seeing that's doing the opposite potentially, right? Hey, Jessica, she says, oh, like spelling out for them, this is your problem so they can learn what they need. Exactly. 100%. Like we have to be so clear, because again, like 500 other messages are coming out around that. And so you guys know this, like all of us do this, our brains bounce. We're like, oh, okay. Oh, my biggest problem is that I don't have a funnel. Interesting. Then I listened to this other thing. Oh, wait, no, that's probably not the funnel. My biggest problem is probably that, like I'm not selling enough. Oh, wait. Oh, my biggest problem, like it's a bounce. Like even some of my clients will like unknowingly do that. They'll listen to like 2 different things I did. Like they'll listen to this live stream, and then they'll listen to like a podcast episode, and they'll be like, well, I think maybe I'm not creating enough problem awareness, but also maybe I'm just not time blocking enough. And so like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, it's just because you listened to those 2 things I did this week. Let's actually talk about what makes sense for you. So we have to be such a clear stand for our audience so they can really see that and start identifying it over and over again. If not, they're going to bounce all the time. And when they're in the bounce, they're not converting, right? When I'm like, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or maybe it's this, like the idea that I'm putting thousands of dollars and tons of time and money into something just isn't there, right? Yes, non-biased perspective. That's totally where our special brains get in the way. These special little things. It's so true. I think I worry about talking down to my audience. So I think I always try to encourage and empower, but I can see how skipping over connecting the dots for them. Part of me feels weird telling them what their problem is, if that makes sense. Probably a mindset thing on my part. Oh yeah, that's so good, Jessica. I mean, listen, I think there are ways to say that are empowering versus disempowering. So like a lot of the ways I'll say that is like, if you're a high, like my audience is a high achiever, so I'm just obviously using that as an example. Like if you're a high achiever, you might be struggling with this, and it probably shows up like this, and it feels like this, and it looks like this. Or, if you're someone who's, perfectionist, you're probably experiencing this, 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 and this. So it's kind of more like, I'm not saying it like, here's your issue kind of thing, right? But it's more like, I get it. you're a high achiever, you're probably feeling all these things right now, and it probably feels like this, and it probably looks like this. So it's more like helping them feel understood and seen and kind of met versus almost like you're doing something wrong. And then also client stories are a great way to do that. So if you can tell the story through someone else's perspective, like a client of mine was dealing with this and it looked like this and it felt like this, then they can start identifying with that too. I think that's such an easy way to do it. And it's really permission giving, because it's like, oh, I can see myself in that. I see myself in that person. I have permission there because this other person was having that issue. So I think it is really just sort of like the frame that you present it through versus like the actual problem awareness thing. Does that make sense? Does that help? Let me know. Michelle, let me know if that's you, because I know you're saying you can relate to that. Yes, a compassionate approach. Exactly. Hi, Harsha. Thank you for being here. 100%. So the more we can kind of meet them there. So something that I feel like I've done for a really long time, and it's so interesting to think about now, but I spent so much of my foundational content for years in my business laying that groundwork of here's why mindset, strategy, and execution is your biggest problem. Even if you read a lot of my mindset, strategy, and execution content to this day, it's way more problem awareness content. It's like, here's why you need all three of those things. Here's why you're trapped if you don't. Here's what that looks like. Here's how it impacted clients here. Like, so like, it's not even all like, just here's what to do for your mindset. Here's what to do for your strategy. Here's what to do for execution. It's so much more problem awareness content on why I believe those three things together are what solve your problem. And so then it translates. So obviously I haven't done sales calls in a while, but well, except for really recently, I did a few for the wait list, but before that it was like over a year. And I think it's a little bit different with the wait list thing, because I, like am staying in touch with them. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't know, I'm going off on that. But my point in saying that is when I used to get on regular sales calls, people would get on the sales call with me and they would be like, well, what I know I need is mindset, strategy, and execution to solve this problem. And so they were so problem aware by the time they were getting on the sales call that mindset, strategy, and execution was it. It was so simple to make the conversion because they already saw that as the solution to their problem, right? So the conversion isn't hard at all when they already see that as a solution to their problem. The conversion is really tough when I'm still on the fence if that's even the solution. So if I can't decide, for example, I'm just making this up, right? If I need to get better organic content marketing going, or if I should pay for Facebook ads, if I haven't decided that and I get on the phone with someone who's like a content coach, or I get on the phone with like a Facebook ads agency and I'm not problem aware enough to know which way I want to go, the conversion is going to be much harder, right? So it's like, this is why it matters. And this is why it will impact your discovery calls and things like that. Because if someone is getting on the phone going, I know Facebook ads solve my problem, I'm basically just here to see if like we're a fit to do that together. See how different that is? I know mindset, strategy, and execution is my thing. I just want to make sure we're a match for that. Then like, it's so simple to just like feel into like, are we a fit? Are we a match? Versus like where you get into that feeling that a lot of people hate, that feels like you're having to be the dancing monkey on a sales call almost, and like prove it or jump through hoops. It's usually not you having to prove you. It's usually problem awareness. They're not coming aware enough. So you're like, well, here's why Facebook ads are great. And here's this, and here's that. Da, da, da. Versus like, if they already got on seeing Facebook ads as the solution to their problem, you'd be having an entirely different conversation. Does that make sense? So it really, really impacts the way that your sales calls convert and how bad or good sales calls feel to you as well. I think about it a lot. Yes, was Michelle says this is such a helpful shift in reflection. Makes so much sense. Perfect. This is making me realize I need to do more thinking time to get clear on this in my own mind. Yes, that. Jessica, totally that. I really think like there is nothing more valuable in our business than just like having that thinking time. Can you guys see me? It's frozen on my screen, but this happened to me before. And I think everyone could still see me. Can you just let me know if you can? So I don't keep talking. I'm totally frozen. Let me know. But yes. So, okay, you can. Cool. All right. So what I was going to say about that is like, yes, I think that it's so freaking helpful to take that time. Like there is nothing more valuable than having that brain space to think, because the thing is, if you're not clear on it, you can almost reliably know your people aren't clear on it. And if you're not clear on why that's the biggest solution to their problem, like, again, like they're definitely not. So like everyone that's listening, okay, you guys can see me. Cool. So everyone that's listening, like that should be your takeaway and your homework for this is, can you answer the question, like, why is my solution the best solution for the problem my audience is facing? And it's okay if we all feel different about that. Like someone might think Facebook ads is the absolute best solution while someone else thinks organic marketing is the best solution. That's totally fine. That's happening all the time in our industry, but you can see that's what makes people unclear, because we both think totally different things about what the best solution is, right? And so then the audience is jumping. But if you can most clearly articulate why yours is the best, if you can explain that most clearly and most specifically and help your people see and identify with that, you're getting the customer, you're getting the client, right? So it's totally okay if you believe other things than other people in the space and in your space. But being able to just really like say that succinctly and clearly is one of the biggest gifts you can give your business. And not to harp on this, but it's so true. As the industry gets noisier and noisier and noisier online, this is going to become more and more and more important because of that. Because if you can clearly articulate like why your solution is the solution, that's when you get the sales. If you are like waiting for your audience to come around to that on their own before they like even make sense of your content or hire you, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage, right? And they're probably not going to be nearly as sold on it when they find you. So your job is helping them see that and being able to articulate that super clearly and super consistently, right? So don't wait to articulate that until they're on a sales call with you. Articulate it in your content early and often. Do not wait, right? Because that's just going to make your sales calls feel hard. And then you're going to feel like you freaking hate sales calls and you feel like a dancing monkey on sales calls because you're waiting until then to be like, oh, well, no, this is totally your biggest problem. But let's use something outside of business. It's like, let's say I want to lose weight. Well, it's totally going to depend on what I think is the thing I need to do for that. Do I think that the way I'm going to lose weight is to count my calories? Well, I'm going to make one investment. Do I think the way I need to lose weight is to work out more? I'm going to make a different investment. Do I think the way I need to lose weight is to whatever, what's another thing? Go keto? Well, I'm going to make a different investment. And what's probably going to be the biggest determiner of what I think is how effective that content has been in helping me see what my problem is. So if I think, I'm so bad at this, you guys. What's the thing with keto? It's like, if I think like, keeping my blood sugar stable, is that it? I think, this is not relevant. I don't know, but I just don't want to like completely misspeak. But like, if I think keeping my blood sugar stable is like the biggest factor in why I'm not losing weight, then keto makes sense. And like any investment I make in that is going to make sense to me. If I think like, honestly, I've just been like really overindulging and not paying attention to what I eat and whatever, then like, obviously like counting my calories or whatever is going to make the most sense to me. But like, I would have to have someone help me self-identify which of those things actually make sense to be able to fully invest in that, to step into that program. And quite honestly, and this is really important, to make the most of that program, to actually get results from that program. Say I invest in the keto thing, but then I decide 2 days later that I don't know if that was really my problem. Do you think I'm going to show up for that program fully? Fuck no. You know what I mean? So that's really helpful to think about too, is that not only does it create the conversion, but it creates the buyer who is really committed as well, because they really see that as the solution. Like I really feel like that is why I'm so fortunate with my clients, that they are so all in and committed when we work together, because they truly see mindset, strategy, and execution as the solution. And so it makes them show up and commit on a whole nother level in a whole nother way. where you can probably even see it in yourself. I know I can see it in myself in different regards when I kind of bought something because I thought like I was interested in it, but I like didn't see it as like the full solution to my problem. Like I treated it as such, you know what I mean? Like I didn't show up fully committed. I didn't really go all in. So not only does it help you get the conversion, but it also helps you get the committed client, right? Hi, Allison. Jennifer says, I needed to hear this today. Definitely going to be intentional on problem awareness and getting my head clear for sure. So good. So good. Yes. And the more your head is clear, the more you articulate that, the more it comes out in everything you're doing, the more you attract clients that are clear, and it becomes this whole thing that spirals into how committed they are in the program and so on and so forth. So there's really nothing better, I think, especially like right now in this online space, again, as it gets noisier in anything, right? Like I'm not even just talking about like even business or coaching. Like think about like, this is another example I would use, like even think about like skincare, right? Like, oh my God, you know, it's so overwhelming. I don't know if anybody else is, I've been really into skincare in the last year. But like I was completely fucking overwhelmed by that until I started following this one woman who was very good at problem awareness and helped me see like, oh, this is what's really actually going on for me. This is the biggest problem. I'm super invested in that solution. And now like, you know, gonna buy all my shit from her. But it's like in the interim of that, when I didn't have that, I was like, should I get this? Should I do this? Am I supposed to do this? Am I not supposed to do this? I have no idea. And I wasn't really like moving forward with anything, or I definitely wasn't willing to like invest bigger money into it because I like didn't get the mechanism. So if you can help your audience get it, like get the mechanism, right? Like I think, you know, most people that have listened to me get why mindset, strategy, and execution makes sense. They get why like you can't really have one without the other in business. And like you have to have all of them together to actually solve your problem. I mean, I could go on and on about this forever, but like once you get that, it helps you run at something. It helps you like make moves, get clear, make investments, commit, show up. But when we are like in that deer in the headlights thing where it's like, should I use this or that? Does this fix it? Does that fix it? Do I actually need to count calories or should I do keto? Like, think about how much time we spend in that spin. So your audience is spending all their time in that spin too. So if you're not meeting them in that spin and you're out here doing, you know, content that like assumes they already know this thing solves it for them, you're just leaving a lot of money on the table. And you're probably not getting people as committed. Or maybe you are, because by the time they found you, they've gone through all this problem awareness elsewhere, but you're probably not signing clients in a sales cycle nearly as fast as you could either. So that's something to think about too. Polly says, I definitely need to dig deeper into problem awareness and create content around it. I feel that way I create content is more surface level. Polly, that's super helpful to even just say, where it's like, so say I have, I'm just going to make this up. I'm not sure what you do, but also feel free to tell me. But say I have this surface level content that I was talking about earlier around like, let's use mindset. So I'm like, here's some great affirmations, or here's this mindset practice. Like you can use that and then deepen it. And why you'd want to do that mindset practice is if you're here, and here, and struggling with this, and this, and it solves it because, you know, this reason. So you can grab what you're already doing with surface level content and just make sure you're connecting it to problem awareness as well. And sometimes that can guide you, because sometimes surface level content is specific enough that it gives us a really good way to go deeper. So you don't necessarily need to throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. You just need to make sure that it's drawing back to that, it's connecting back to that, right? And what I think is so interesting about this too, is that obviously this seems like it would be a problem for people that are like newer in business potentially, but I actually think this is something that a lot of clients are having to even come back to and revisit, potentially that have been in business for a long time or even making like 6 or 7 figures, because the space has gotten noisier and noisier. So I just wanted to say that because I feel like it used to be a little different. I mean, I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years at this point. And like before there was like a million coaches or whatever, it felt like there was almost like one problem that the industry was kind of latched onto at a time, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. So it was like, funnels were a really big thing for a while. And then, like content's a really big thing. And so you could create a lot more value content directed at one specific thing without having to do as much problem awareness content. And I think that's just totally shifted in the last couple of years. And so my point in saying that is if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I've been kind of at this for a while, it's still an opportunity to go back and revisit that, because it's probably gotten almost too easy for you to not have to have that conversation. And you maybe didn't even have to have it when you first started some of this years ago. And so this is something I'm revisiting with a lot of my clients over time, is like, especially if we're not seeing a lot more like readiness and yeses, we're going back to, are they problem aware enough to be a yes to this? So anyway, like whether you're brand new at this or whether you've been doing this a long time, like this is like one of the best exercises you can do right now. And again, it's like very much like where our industry has gone. So I hope that helps. I think the last thing I want to say about it, which I kind of talked about, but just feels really, really important here, is this solves a lot of objections that don't seem related to this, right? So what I mean by that is like, if you are getting a lot of like, I'm not sure if I'm ready, or I don't know if I have the time, or like money's like a thing here, or whatever, like some of these things that feel like aren't at all related to problem awareness, I would challenge you to think about that they might be, because like time, money, readiness, all of that kind of stuff, that's overcome if I truly believe this is the solution, right? And so what I would say is like, be careful what problem you're trying to solve as well. Meaning like, sometimes like if we hear, a lot of money objections, we're like, okay, cool. Like, how do I add payment plans? How do I do this? All this kind of stuff. And like, maybe, but I would also ask yourself like, cool, are any of the objections I'm hearing often maybe related to this? And how can I start seeing that connection there? Because I feel like when it feels more like a want than a need is when a lot of those objections start to pop up. But when it feels like I need this thing to solve this problem, a lot of those objections go away because we feel so clear that this is the solution. So I hope that makes sense, where it's like, yes, this creates more conversions, but also so many of the objections later on down the line in the sales process actually comes back to, are we having this conversation way more upfront in the sales process? So I hope that makes sense, where like, yes, you want to get people on the phone more ready and all of that kind of stuff. But if they're not coming ready, like it can be easy to try to just solve for like, how do I overcome the objections on the call? And sometimes we have to go all the way to the front end of like, how am I overcoming them early? How am I getting them more problem aware? How am I showing them that this is the thing before time, money, energy, all of that even come up? Does that make sense? I just wanted to say that because I think that sometimes, we don't see how all the dots connect. So that's super important. We want it to feel like a need, not a want. And I don't mean need in the like gross, like you can't do it without me kind of way, but I mean it in the way of like, say I've decided like I'm super fucking committed to losing weight. Now I need a program to help me do that. It's not like, oh, I'd be curious and want to learn a little bit more about keto. It's like, I need that program because this is the direction I'm going. So it's like not in the gross, like you need me to get results kind of way. It's the need in the like, I'm empowered enough to solve this problem and I see this as the solution to it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So takeaways: create way more problem awareness content. Our industry is absolutely in need of it right now. It's noisy AF, and this is one of the ways to break through that. Do it early, do it often, do it in a lot of your content. Make sure your content is meeting your people there and not so far down the line that like they would already have to have created all of their own problem awareness before your content even started to resonate with them. And ask yourself, when you're getting objections, does it relate back to this? Have you created enough problem awareness that they don't need that? right? They don't even have to have that, oh my God, am I ready conversation, because they know this is the thing, right? This was such a good reminder, Lacey. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, thank you. I'm so glad you guys found this helpful. Okay, cool. This is all of your homework. Have this answer ready for yourself this week. Like, how do they know this is the problem? And are you saying it enough? And if you need that time, like Jessica was saying, to sit it aside, think about it, sit with it yourself, that's beautiful. Don't make that wrong. Like, the more and more you give yourself that time and space to get clear on this, the more you help your audience do it too. So I think that's amazing. I am so appreciative of you guys for showing up, for commenting, for coming live. I just really, 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 really appreciate that. I really can't say that enough. So I hope that you all have a beautiful week. I hope that no one gets food poisoning this week. And I will be back next Monday. All right, guys. Bye.